Hilltop Consultants. Real IT people, real IT solutions, real IT partners. Hello and welcome to the Hilltop Consultants webinar series. I'm your host, Clayton Romero. Today's episode will be focusing on some security hot tips, and we'll be covering multi-factor authentication, passwords, digital password assistance, phishing attacks, and hotspots. The reality is, the web is only becoming a more dangerous world. When hackers have a billion-dollar industry at their fingertips stealing your data, it's not going to get any safer anytime soon, so it's time for us to start to learn how to deal with those. Right off the bat, we're going to talk about multi-factor authentication. Now, this is when you take an existing authentication attempt, so a username and then password, and you're giving it another factor to confirm your identity. Now, you, I'm sure, have seen if your bank asks you to identify, another picture to go with your password, or pick a security code where it says, what street you lived on or what your mother's maiden name is. Those are a second factor, but they're not random. That's one or two different options, and someone can either guess that or that knowledge may be commonly available. So what you want to use is some kind of random number generator. There's a couple of really great ones that are out there that are cross-platform compatible, and that means that they work with the vast majority of password requests out there. That's going to be Authy, Microsoft Authenticator, Duo, and the Google Authenticator. So how you're going to use this is that when you're setting up any new username, any new login, you're going to set up a second factor with that. It's going to usually give you some kind of a QR code that you can scan with your cell phone. Using one of these apps, it will pull that code directly into that app. So you pick one, you learn it, you use it, and then when you log in to that service, in addition to your username and your passcode, it's going to pop up and ask you for your multi-factor code. That's going to be usually a 6-digit PIN that's going to be randomly generated at the moment and will expire within a couple of seconds. So that keeps you really, really secure. Some people will want to use text messages, and that's a good second factor, but the reality is, in the last couple of years, it's been shown to be insecure. People have been able to clone cell phone numbers and to be able to masquerade as you, so they've been able to intercept those text messages. So if you ever have the option, get to know one of these multifunction apps, multi-factor apps, and then use that multi-factor app. Here's the second really common thing. You're going to have the same password for every service. And if it's not the same password, it might be a really similar password, like I've got password 123. And then for another one, I've got password 1234. And then for another one, I've got password 4567. Well, the reality is hackers love that, because even if you've got a really, really complex password, okay, let's say your password is 25 digits and you've got a number and a letter and a punctuation mark in there, and it's really secure. If you use that same password everywhere, or you use that same password, but it's different by a number or a letter, then if anyone ever gets that password, they have access to all of your stuff. Now, I don't know about you, but I like the fact that I have a different key for my car and for my house, and that I don't have a key for my bank. I've got a PIN, and I have a username and my password, and I've got a debit card. All of those are different ways, because if I had the same key, all someone would have to do is steal that one key, and then they could get into all the rest of my stuff. Now, if you're saying, well, but what if I change that letter, right? So I've got a really complex password, but then I have 1 or 2 digits different. Well, then if they have your password, all they have to do is use a brute force program, which is a common toolkit for any hacker to have, and then in a split second, they'll have tried every possible combination in addition to that. So you may as well just have a 2 or 3 digit password, right? It's just as strong as that is. So make sure that when you're going through and you're setting up accounts, you're using a different password for each account. Now that's really daunting. When you have probably on average 30 things you log into on a regular basis, and you got to memorize 30 different passwords. I can barely remember all of my family members' birthdays, let alone the 30 passwords that I've got. Well, there's luck, because you can use digital password assistants to handle that in a secure way that also makes it convenient for you. Some of the really secure password managers out there are options like Dashlane, LastPass, or 1Password. Most of these come with a free version to begin with, and that's not a bad deal, but you really should get the premium versions for all of these. They're really cheap. It's a couple of bucks a month, if that, and it's going to give you not only better integration to all of the things you use on a day-to-day basis, right? There'll be an app, and there'll be a web plugin for whatever browser you prefer, but there's also going to be things like password recovery, so that in the event that you forget your password, it can go through and help you with the recovery process. It can help you automatically and randomly generate passwords. In addition to that, you can store a large number of passwords. And even if you want to, on some of the premium ads, share passwords among family members. So if I have, for example, an iTunes account, and I need to make sure that my wife has access to that single iTunes account, I can do that in a secure manner rather than sending that password over text or writing it down on a piece of paper, right? I mean, we don't ever want to share our passwords, but let's be honest, sometimes we have to. It's better to do it in a secure way than in an insecure way. So using a service, again, like Dashlane or LastPass or 1Password, these things allow us to set one very, very secure password that changes regularly, and that's important. Make sure you get a secure password and you change it regularly. That way, all of your other passwords, all the 30 that I was just referencing, each one of those gets stored inside this password manager, and it's locked up behind your master key. And that master key changes on a regular basis, and it's a really complex key, so that if you had someone who was using one of these brute force password crackers, and they're really hammering on this door, and they're trying hundreds of thousands of millions of different combinations, with a secure password, something that's got a capital letter, a lowercase letter, a number, some kind of punctuation, and then it's going to be at least 12 characters. That's going to take someone a month solid with that brute force password cracker and a really intense computer to crack. So make sure you are changing these things regularly. It's not, it's not impenetrable because you've got a really complex one. You got to make sure that you change it regularly. So use one of these guys, get familiar with it, get the app, use some kind of biometric to secure it on your phone, so that even if your phone gets stolen, they've got to have your fingerprint or your face or whatever the case is. Secure that behind your dual factor as well, right? So you want to make sure that all of these have the most secure passwords you can get, and it's really convenient. Is as long as you've gotten used to this and you've set it up, it doesn't take very long to get set up and to start to integrate, and it makes it really, really easy to keep a lot of stuff secure. So now you don't have to freak out about the 30 passwords that you've got to remember, because you only have to remember the one. So passwords aren't our only concern, right? One of the big ones, one of the most common and most successful attacks is called a phishing attack. And if you don't know what that is, A, you probably haven't been watching the news recently, but B, it is where someone takes an email and they send it to you masquerading as someone you know. Someone that has information in that email, in the body of that email, that makes you think this is probably legitimate, right? Maybe it's the owner of my company who's asking me for a really urgent favor, or they're saying, hey, I am your client and I didn't receive that payment for you. Can you please wire it to XYZ? Or, hey, I need your wiring information. Can you please send that to this address? Once they've gotten that information, now you're hooked, right? Either they've gotten the information they wanted and they're going to use that to steal money, or you've downloaded something and they're using that to then harvest information from you, download crypto into your system, any number of different things, right? So that phishing attack is one where someone masquerades as someone you know, in a social engineering attack and then compromises your security because it looked legitimate. So the way you get around that really is vigilance. You say, I wasn't expecting this email, or this person is asking me for some things they're not usually asking me for, or I'm about to transfer a large sum of money or compromise some very, very large security thing, right? I would never give my password or never give my wiring information or my bank account information if I didn't know that it was going to the correct source. The easiest way to go through and do that, even though everyone has this huge demand to answer emails very, very quickly, is just to pick up the phone, right? Call that other person, and that's going to do a couple things. One, they're going to appreciate the personal touch. And two, you're going to know that the person who just made that request is that actual person. Okay, so like the Yellow Pages say, let your fingers do the walking. Pick up the phone, call the person who just sent you that email that looks a little suspicious, and find out if it really is. Finally, Wi-Fi hotspots. It seems like Wi-Fi hotspots have become ubiquitous. They're everywhere. Gas stations these days offer Wi-Fi hotspots. There's the offering on every coffee shop and university store and grocery store to connect to their Wi-Fi hotspot. They're all open, they're all unsecured, and let's be honest, they're terrible. If you're ever connected to one of those things, the bandwidth is just garbage. You're going to have a hard time having a good experience on those. But more than just the good experience, they're totally unsecure. You're taking all of your data, all of your credit card information, your client data, your documents, all of those safe, secure, trusted things, and you're passing them off to a complete stranger and trusting that stranger to deliver them where they're supposed to go without looking at it. Right? If you look back to when we were all kids, Mom and Dad said, never take candy for strangers. That's the same way you got to look at Wi-Fi hotspots. There's no way that you're going to know whether or not some random Starbucks or movie store or theater or whatever has safe, secure Wi-Fi. There are people who can masquerade as that same Wi-Fi signal and intercept your data. There's people who can just plug in a Wi-Fi hotspot at any store, hide it, and then you think that the store is the one who's offering it, when in reality, it's some hacker who's just waiting to harvest your data. So make sure that when you're looking at connecting to Wi-Fi, it is a secure site. Now, if you don't have that option, if you need to get something out right away, you got to get on your laptop and publish a brief or whatever the case is, your cell phone, in most situations, if it's a smartphone, has a personal hotspot you can turn on and connect through Bluetooth or through USB to your computer. All right. And although your provider will likely charge you some premium for using your cell phone bandwidth as a Wi-Fi hotspot, it's going to be way more secure and it's going to be way faster, a better experience. You just want to make sure that if you're using someone's hotspot, someone's Wi-Fi, that you know who and what it is and what's safer than your own cell phone. So resist the urge, resist the temptation. Don't connect to that free Wi-Fi hotspot. Use your own personal Wi-Fi. Use a trusted Wi-Fi connection, or use your cell phone hotspot. That concludes this episode of the Hilltop Consultants webinar series. I want to thank you again for taking your time and following us through on this webisode. I hope you've learned something. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me at cromero@hilltopconsultants.com. This is Clayton Romero signing off. Hilltop Consultants. Real IT people. Real IT solutions. Real IT partners.